Okay, so before we get to the review, I think that it's about time we gave you a channel update. See, the reason we brought these Over the Garden Wall videos back right now is because, well, episode 9 of this show was supposed to be this year's Halloween review when we started this show last year, but then earlier on this year we got really bogged down with schedule conflicts and didn't have time to keep going, so now we're trying to catch up on this show so that we can get to episode 9 by the end of October. That's why you've been seeing a bunch of these videos all at once. And yes, catching up on this show and catching up on Steven Universe at the same time is quite a feat. Anyway, if things are going as planned, this will be the last video we release in September. Episodes 7 through 9 will happen in October, and we can get to episode 10 whenever we want. With that out of the way, the episode.
We open up with Wirt, Greg, Beatrice, and Fred inside of some crazy old guy named Quincy's house.
The group came here to steal some of this guy's money, so they can pay to get to Adelaide. He starts talking about falling in love with a woman in a portrait, who he thinks is a ghost.
So Greg, Quincy, and Fred go to do a ghost hunt in the house. The woman walks in and they both faint. Each one of them gives Greg a penny, making it so he has 2 pennies, enough for them to ride the ferry. He tosses the pennies into a fountain and a fish eats them. So the episode begins with Wirt, Beatrice, Greg, and George Washington, the frog, all on the ferry to Adelaide's house. Apparently, the entire ferry staff is frogs, along with the passengers, and George Washington can dance? Yeah.
Oh, we're going to the pasture too.
Anyway, Greg starts singing his Adelaide Parade song, Wirt joins in, and everyone seems to be happy except Beatrice, who's uncharacteristically wistful.
Where she is where we will go.
So unlike past episodes, the conflict in this episode seems to be pretty squarely centered on Beatrice. Wirt and Greg feel like everything is okay for once, and if it weren't for Beatrice, they'd just keep marching on to Adelaide's house. But Beatrice just can't seem to stop stalling, and it really messes up Wirt and Greg's funky flow.
The police show up, angry at Wirt, Greg, and Beatrice because they snuck onto the ferry without paying. There's a small chase scene, which the background music I really enjoy, and the 3 of them end up slipping away by doing the old 3 kids in a trench coat act and joining up with the band. Side note, Wirt's coat gets at least 3 times longer than it normally is in this scene. Why? The world may never know.
Normally, this show does a good job matching the scenes to music that fits the mood, but this has to be the slowest, most low-energy chase music I've ever heard. Don't get me wrong, this is a pretty piece of music, but it feels like it belongs in a different scene. Isn't chase music supposed to be really fast and energetic?
I still very much enjoy the way it sounds, though.
Wirt and company join the band, and Beatrice seems really interested in getting the group kicked off of this boat.
Hey, why don't you play the bassoon?
That'll get us kicked off this boat for sure.
No, Greg's right. You should play it.
Eventually, though, Wirt relents, and the band starts playing a song.
Although the police figure out that it's actually Wirt playing the bassoon, they can't stop him since it would anger the frogs on the boat.
And I can kind of see why the frogs on the boat would get mad.
Your soul sets his voice singing.
As it turns out, Greg's frog is a really good singer.
A song rises over the lilies. Sweeps
And while this isn't my favorite song in the show, it's a pretty nice one. Also,
and over the garden wall.
they said the title!
I knew you were special.
When the song ends, it cuts to everyone getting off the boat and into the mud to hibernate. Wirt, Greg, and Beatrice sit around the campfire to talk later that night. Beatrice narrowly attempts to make it so that they won't be able to go to Adelaide's, which succeeds, in a way. And in the middle of the night, she heads off herself.
This Campfire Talk is another one of those times when this show just casually reveals background details about characters like they're nothing. We find out that Wirt's crush was taken by a guy back home, and it's just dropped in there. You'd almost miss it if you weren't paying attention, but let's focus on Beatrice.
So, when Beatrice flies off in the middle of the night, Wirt and Greg follow her. She turns out to be heading to Adelaide's house, where it's revealed that Beatrice originally kept them around so that she could turn her and her family back to normal. Beatrice tries to convince Adelaide that she doesn't need the two of them, but in the middle of all that, they walk in. Perfect timing.
Up until now, we've just assumed that Adelaide was actually a really nice person, but as it turns out, she's a scam artist who turned Beatrice into a bird so that she could bring her children to turn into slaves. Yikes. Biggest twist in the show so far. And she's working for the Beast, so that's a thing. Don't know how this ties to that lantern, but alright. Also, I don't know what this instrument playing in the background is called, but it sounds really good.
Wirt and Greg get tied up in the string trap that was set up by Adelaide and think that Beatrice had betrayed them. After Adelaide rambles on for a bit about filling their heads with wool or whatever, Beatrice opens up one of the windows, letting in the fresh air, which she's apparently allergic to, or something.
Well, the Adelaide situation is solved, but it looks like Wirt feels that Beatrice betrayed his trust. It's actually pretty sad. Just when we find out how terrible Beatrice's situation really is, Wirt and Greg leave her behind, with Wirt being angry at life. It's easily the most depressing ending we've gotten from this show, and unlike past episodes where the thing that looked scary turned out to be harmless, this time it's the thing that seemed nice that turns out to be evil, and that's where the episode ends. Everything is ruined, and all hope is lost. So that was fun, wasn't it?
I like how this episode, out of nowhere, suddenly went from happy and everything's going great to everything's going downhill and it's burning. We start off with happy dancing frogs, and we end off with the frogs combusting into flames and exploding. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm gonna go with it. Anyway, I enjoyed the soundtrack to this episode especially, and it was also very cleverly done in the terms of writing. I'd give it a 4.7 out of 5.
This is a good episode, but mostly for the second half. The frog boat sequence is kind of cute, but it isn't until after the trio gets back onto land that the really interesting stuff begins. Still, this episode puts so many things into context, and unlike past episodes where most of the problems got solved by the end, this time we're just left with a bad situation that doesn't get better. It marks a turning point in this show, where now suddenly everything seems all the more menacing and sad, and we'll be looking at this darker side of Over the Garden Wall in October.
So thank you one and all for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one. Bye!
Wait, what? Oh no, it's the frog memes! They're angry we didn't reference them in this video! Run for your life!
Ah!